So in this video, we're going to look at open market operations. What are open market operations? Open market operations refers to the buying and selling of bonds issued by the government in the open market. So let's look at the definition again. It refers to the buying and selling of government bonds in the open market. Okay, so that is why it is called open market operations, buying and selling of government issued bonds in the open market. The government has authorized the RBI to conduct open market operations on its behalf, and only the RBI can undertake such actions for the government. So, how does it work? If the RBI wants to increase the money supply in an economy, then it buys a bond. I repeat, if the RBI wants to increase the money supply in economy, then it buys a bond. When it buys a bond, it pays the person with money. So when it pays the person with money, then the total money in the economy has now increased, right? So now when the RBI buys a bond, that means it is giving cash to the other person. That means the total amount of money supply in an economy is increasing. So if the RBI wants to increase the money supply in the economy, it buys back a bond, then it infuses the market with more cash, and then the total money circulating in the economy increases. Now let's look at the opposite scenario. What happens when the RBI decides to sell a government bond as part of open market operations? Now, if the RBI wants to decrease the money supply in the economy, then it sells a bond. So what happens when the RBI sells a bond? An RBI sells a bond, some buyer comes and gives money to the RBI, and the RBI takes the money. So when the RBI has taken the money, that means the total amount of money circulating in the economy decreases. So when the RBI wants to decrease the amount of money circulation in the economy, what does it do? It sells a bond. So to decrease the money supply in economy, it will sell a bond. So it can buy a bond to increase the money supply, and it will sell a bond to decrease the money supply. This is as part of open market operations. Open market operations can be used on a daily basis to adjust the liquidity in our economy. They are also used on a more permanent basis if the RBI feels that there is a need to adjust the liquidity in the market. Open market operations can be looked at in two parts, that is outright open market operations and repurchase open market operations. Repurchase open market operations are also known as repos. We have been using this term throughout the course. So repurchase open market operations means repos. So we have two kinds of open market operations. One is the outright open market operations, and the second one is the repurchase open market operations. Now we have to ask the question, what is an outright open market operation and what is a repurchase open market operation? Outright outright open market operations are those in which the government does not bear a promise to either sell or buy back the securities that it is dealing with. So there is no promise to sell or buy back the securities that the government is dealing with. It is open ended. That is why it is called outright open market operations, because it is open ended without a date of selling or purchasing it again. So there is no time period within which the government will sell or buy back the bond. All of these are open ended. There is no particular date for selling these bonds or to purchase it again. So these are known as outright open market operations. So the second type that we have to look at is repurchase open market operations. Repurchase open market operations are also known as repos. Repos or repurchase agreements. So such agreements have a date as to when the RBI will resell or repurchase the security. So we saw that in outright open market operations, there was no specific date when the RBI would either resell or repurchase the security. But in case of a repurchase open market operation, what happens is that there is a specific date when the RBI will resell or repurchase a particular security. Okay, this is the basic difference between the two. We are still discussing about open market operations only. Don't get confused. In open market operations, we said that RBI can either buy or sell a bond to infuse liquidity or to remove liquidity from a system, and it has two main tools to do that, that is outright open market operations and repurchase open market operations. Now, repos are the most common form of open market operations that the RBI uses to give effect to its monetary policy. So repos are the most common mode of open market operations that the RBI uses to give effect to its monetary policy. When the central bank is buying a security with a promise to resell on a particular date, it is a repo. I repeat, when the central bank is buying a security with a promise to resell on a particular date, it is called a repo. That is, if a central bank buys a security and tells you that it's going to resell this security on a particular date, then it is a repo. Now, what is a reverse repo? Reverse repo is the exact opposite of repo. That is, when the central bank is selling a security with a promise to buy it back on a particular date, it is called a reverse repo. Now, repo and reverse repo operations are conducted with overnight, 7-day, and 14-day maturities. So, this is also an important point. Repo and reverse repo operations are conducted with overnight, 7-day, and 14-day maturities. The RBI gives loans to commercial banks. We all know this. The rate at which the RBI extends these loans to commercial banks is known as the bank rate. So, bank rate is the rate at which the RBI gives loans to commercial banks. Now, if the RBI wants to decrease the money supply in the economy, then it increases the bank rate. So, the RBI can also control the amount of money supply in an economy through the bank rate. Now, if it makes it difficult for commercial banks to borrow from the RBI, then what happens is the banks will borrow lesser from the RBI. If the banks borrow lesser from the RBI, it means the banks have lesser money to lend to the customers. If the banks are lending lesser money to the customers, then the amount of money that is available in the economy decreases. So, if the RBI wants to decrease the money supply in the economy, then it increases the bank rate. It makes it more difficult for the banks to borrow money. In turn, the customers face difficulty in borrowing money from the banks, and in turn, liquidity is sucked out of the economy. If the RBI decreases the bank rate, then the money supply in the economy automatically increases. Why is this? This is because if the bank rate is decreased, commercial banks will borrow more from the RBI. Because the bank rate is lower, then the interest rate that is passed on to the customer will be lower. The customer will borrow more money from the bank, and there will be more money in the economy. So, even using the bank rate, the amount of money supply in the economy can be controlled. This is how it is done. So this concludes this video. We'll continue in the next video. Thank you.